Welcome everybody to another episode of Enclosed Cosmology Fellowship. This episode is called Ascendancy, and we're going to get into what that means and what we're going to be talking about here shortly. But as always, we're going to get into saying hellos and getting any housekeeping done, and then we will get into the topic at hand. So I'm pretty excited about this one. But yeah, let's say hello. Our dear brother Anthony Dickinson, my main man. You're here with us as always. How are you doing? How are you feeling, brother?
Everyone, and Vader Bear and Frank and everybody in the chat. Doing pretty good. Feeling just a little tired today. It's rained most of the day today. It just made me feel tired, I reckon. But we here. Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, awesome. It's always good to have, rest days, and we're coming up on a rest day, but, sometimes definitely as it gets hot, the sun drains you pretty quickly. But anyways, we'll appreciate you being here as always. And we also got Frankie B with us. How you doing? Shabbat shalom. Your sun's down, so to you it applies.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Shabbat. Get into some puzzle pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Sweet. Okay, so let's do a little housekeeping real quick. So, man, I literally do this every time. I need to pull this over here, and I need to pull this over here. Okay, sweet. So, as always, I want to say thank you to all of those that are, continue to donate to Anthony's cause. Again, if you're interested in learning more about it, there's this information here. You can pause it and read it now, or obviously you can go to the link. I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat. But anyways, we do really appreciate those that do. Of course, there's a lot of anonymous, but there's also some who are not anonymous, so I definitely want to shout them out. So we have Ron Smith, our friend Trevor Missler, Jonathan Walser, that's our friend Highway Hermit. So yeah, to all of y'all and all those other names that are anonymous, we really do appreciate that. We're getting closer and closer to that 2,500 goal to get him, some real help in his situation. So obviously, that'd be really awesome if you can. And then I also want to point out that we are 7 away from hitting that 500 milestone. And then again, as soon as we do that, we're going to look at the vote, and we'll talk about that at the end of the thing. But you get to vote for the prize. It looks like it's going to be the shofar, so we're going to get out a really nice shofar to a person who is obviously subscribed and then has commented on at least one video. So just want to give a reminder there. And yeah, perfect. So that's it for now, at least when it comes to housekeeping. So let's kind of get into the topic. So we're going to be covering Joshua 8, 9, and 10. But we're going to go through 8 and 9 pretty quickly to kind of give the context of what's going on in 10. And then we're going to speak about a very specific prayer that Joshua prayed in Joshua 10 during his fight against the Amorites. And then we're going to kind of step back and look at that logically and look at that versus the heliocentric model versus enclosed cosmology. So it's going to be really exciting. And before we get that, shout out to Robert D, Luke, Andrew, my beautiful wife, the Mrs. Vader, Michael Pinner, and Anthony, all y'all in the chat. It's going to be a fun ride. So I hope y'all enjoy. But yeah, let's kind of get in it. Does anyone, or before we get into it, does there anyone have anything that they kind of want to bring up before we get into the topic episode?
Yeah, I got one little thing right quick. A lot of people already know, but sort of a little bit of backstory on ECF in general. It started out on Facebook. My real good friend and dear brother, Paul on the Plane, and I, way back in the day, whenever everybody was first debating and questioning and looking into a quote unquote flat Earth, he and I started a group called Flat Earth Christians, and later that particular group became Enclosed Cosmology Fellowship. Shout out Andrew Michael Denny for the name. Thank you, brother. But as a lot of people are aware, the ECF Facebook group got heavily shadow banned because of about 5 so-called misinformation or false information posts in there. But I wanted to shout out Morgan Cadwell, and I never can remember the name of your channel, but it's
Unwildly popular.
I want to give her a shout out. She's done some work to the Facebook group, and it seems to be back on the up and up. I want to give everybody a thank you for posting and keeping it civil and being a part of the family. I want to thank everybody for joining in over there. But shout out to everybody in the ECF Facebook group. That's about all I had.
Sweet. And I did post that link to the Enclosed Cosmology Fellowship. If you're not a part of it, it's actually a quite bigger of a community than we have here, and because of the things he's talking about, we're trying to also help grow this side of it, but hamstringed is a nice word to say for that. But I post the link there, so if you're interested, go check that out. And then okay, sweet. So that's it. Let's get into it. So I'm gonna bring up the scripture for y'all. So bear with me while I pull that up. And perfect. And let's share that over. Alrighty. So again, we're in Joshua 8. I'll go ahead and read. These are kind of long, so this is going to take a little bit of thing, but I think it's important for the context of kind of the things we've already seen with, the walls of Jericho and what kind of went on there. And we even kind of, talked about, what were they dispersing energy in a circle and creating some type of energy vortex? Like, that was a really interesting conversation. So check that out if that sounds interesting. But anyways, so we've kind of seen that. So we're gonna go through this, and then we'll kind of get into the side topic around 10. So I'll go ahead and read this again. Joshua 8, and it said, "And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai and his people, and his city and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereon and the cattle thereon shall ye take from the prey unto your saves. Lay thee a ambush for the city behind it. One second. So Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up against Ai. And Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them away by night. And he commanded them, saying, Behold, ye shall lie in wait against the city, even behind the city. Go not very far from the city, but ye be all ready. And I and all the people that are with me will approach unto the city, and it shall come to pass when they come out against us, as at the first, that they will flee before them. For they will come out after us till we have drawn them from the city. For they will say, They flee before us, as at the first, therefore we flee before them. Then ye shall arise up from the ambush, and seize upon the city, for the Lord your God will deliver into your hand. And it shall be, when ye have taken the city, and ye shall set the city afire, according to the commandment of the Lord, shall ye do. See, I have commanded you. Joshua therefore sent them forth, and they went to lie in ambush, and abode between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Joshua lodged that night among the people. And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and numbered the people, and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people of Ai. And all the people, even the people of war that were with him, went up and drew nigh, and came before the city, and pitched on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and sent them to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. And when they had set the people, even all the host that was on the north of the city, and their liers in wait of the west of the city, Joshua went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to pass, when the king of Ai saw it, that they hastened and rose up early, and the men of the city went out against Israel to battle. He and all his people at an appointed time before the plain, but he wist not that there were liers in ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all the Israel made as if it were beaten before them, and fled by the wilderness, as if they were beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people that were in Ai were called together to pursue after them, and they pursued after Joshua, and drawn away from the city. And there was not a man left in Ai or Bethel that went not out after Israel. And they left the city open, and pursued after Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Stretch out the spear that is in thy hand forward, Ai, for I will give it unto thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city. And the ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand. And they entered into the city, and took it, and hastened, and set the city on fire. And when men of Ai looked behind them, they saw, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended up to heaven. And they had no power to flee this way or that. And the people that fled to the wilderness turned back upon the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city ascended, then they turned again and slew the men of Ai. And the other issued out of the city against them. So they went into the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side, and they smote them, so that they left none of them remain or escape. And the king of Ai they took alive, and brought him to Joshua. And it came to pass, when Israel had made an end of slaying all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness within they chased them, and when all have fallen on the edge of the sword, until they were consumed, that all Israelites returned unto Ai, and smote it with the edge of the sword. And so it was that all that fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai. For Joshua drew not his hand back, within he stretched out the spear, until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the cattle and the spoil of the city Israel took from a prey unto themselves, according unto the word of the Lord which he commanded Joshua. And Joshua burnt Ai, and made it an heap forever, even a desolation unto this day. And the king of Ai he hanged on a tree until ever tide. And as soon as the sun was down, Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree and cast it at the entering of the gate of the city, and raise thereon a gap heap of stone that remaineth unto this day. Then Joshua built an altar unto the Lord God of Israel in the Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord commanded the children of Israel, as it is written in the book of law of Moses, an altar of whose stones, whose no man which hath lift up any iron, and they offered thereon burnt offerings unto the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And he wrote there upon the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he wrote in the presence of the children of Israel. And all Israel and their elders and their officers and their judges stood on this side the ark, and on that side before the priests the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, as well the stranger as that was born among them. Half of them over against Mount Gerizim, and half of them over against Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded before them, that they should bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, according to all that is written in the book of law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded which Joshua read not before all the congregation of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers that were conversant among them. All right, I think I did pretty good. I had like one or two breaks in there. So now again, we're not going to spend too much time in these because again, our main topic is in 10. But does anyone have anything quickly like they'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to point out about the well, first of all, keep in mind Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. There's a lot to those places. There's all through Scripture for some reason. It always goes back to this Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Are I think we actually know why from the book of Deuteronomy. But anyway, we'll get into that later. But isn't it pretty cool how where I forget the verse it was in where says then hold out towards Ai the javelin that is in your hand for into I can't hardly see this y'all, but for into your hand I would deliver the city. Uh what's he doing? Just pointing a spear at what he wants taken out. What's up with that spear, man?
I think
What
it
kind
was
of spear?
also because I think just like the order of events that happened, he points the spear. I think that was kind of like the banner raised, the symbol given for them to attack. And
You don't think it could have been some sort of a like mighty weapon or something like that, do you? Like,
no, it doesn't really describe that. It just describes a spear. It doesn't say there's anything special about it. I guess that doesn't mean that there wasn't something special about it, but I think it was more so just him, like him, saying like, the Lord said, do this thing. He did it. The people knew what that meant, and then they went and conquered the city. So I don't know. That's at least how I think about it.
well, yeah, maybe so. But then we see stuff like the Avengers movies where they have these relics, like the Tesseract that holds this weird sort of power or something. Only certain people can touch these things, and whatever kind of weapon that was that the bad guy had in one of them, it looked like a spear and it would shoot lasers and all that stuff. You don't think it's something like that, huh?
No,
Because I
I don't
mean,
think it
you
has to be. And it doesn't describe anything like that, right? Like, if he had some super powerful weapon like that, why would he run and then, like, why wouldn't he just fight them? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not saying that those type of things didn't exist. I just don't know if Joshua needed it, and I think we'll get into why. In 10, or obviously we've seen it in Jericho. We've seen it here, right? And we're gonna continue seeing him, have these victories, which he really shouldn't have, but because he's obedient to what the Father tells him to, the Father gives him the victories because he fights for Israel. So, but
Well, I totally agree with that. But when I mean it, we kind of see things all throughout Scripture. Like the Ark of the Covenant. Is well, I don't. Did we get into that last week where they stole the Ark of the Covenant and they just couldn't wait to give it back, or is that later on? It might be later on, but anyway, I think there's something to these particular items that were mentioned, because you got to realize, they're Israelite men, 6 feet, 7 foot tall at best, going up against 200-foot people in war. I mean, I
I
don't
don't
think that
know
they
if they're
was
200 feet, brother. I have some disagreements on that and the L or whatever, but because there's different, even like the what is it called? The bit, not the bit. I cannot remember the name of the word, but I don't cubit. Like cubit has a whole bunch of different measurements. They're not all the same, so I don't know if they were 200 feet tall people, to be honest. But.
let's put it in the context that when they went up against Og, that Og said that the Israelites' front line was 3 miles wide, and he went on top of a hill and picked up a rock that was 3 miles wide and he was prepared to throw that rock down on the whole line of Israel when they came against him. So I would think he'd have to be either a really big dude or has some sort of a very powerful weapon thing that could lift a rock that size and to be able to throw it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all speculation on how that happened. But yeah, I don't know. They could have relic weapons. They could not. I don't see any information where it talks about that. So if you want to speculate about that, then I don't have an issue with that. But I don't think it at least says it in Scripture. What's up, Frankie?
Wasn't the Tesseract the thing from the Avengers that alien dude had?
Loki.
Loki, yeah, wasn't that the Tesseract that he had?
Yeah, he had the Tesseract
with with one of the stones in it.
Mm-hmm.
What was the stone he had in that? It was the one that went into the.
I don't know. Is that the power?
Power stone, the yellow one, yeah.
No, it wasn't yellow. It was blue.
Blue and the Tesseract. I thought it was yellow.
No, the blue's. No, you're the Wisdom Stone came out of. Where did they get? I don't know. We're kind of getting way off subject. But what's your point? I guess with the Tesseract.
Funny that they used the Tesseract in an Avengers movie, and Anthony just brought it up. That's what I was thinking. I was, is that a real thing, the Tesseract?
No. He was just using that as an example. Like if they have some type of weapon like the Tesseract where they can shoot, lasers out of.
Well, in the Old Testament, didn't the Ephod stones light up when a prophecy would come across them?
I think so, but I don't know. Again, guys, we're getting so far off of topic at this point. I wanted to get through 8, 9, and 10 so that we can talk about that main subject. So, excuse me for kind of butting in and doing this. Does anyone I don't mind reading again, but does anyone else want to read Joshua 9? Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll read it. I kind of like the subject of, but I was looking up something else. But anyway, if we're gonna, you wanted to see where it talks about the size of the giants, but anyway, chapter 9. Let me see.
If not, bro, I
I'm,
have it.
I'm
I
gonna
have it right here. Unless you want to.
I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read from the Sefer since I can see it better, but the name's gonna might tongue tie me a little bit. And it says, and it came to pass when all the kings which were on the side of the Jordan in the hills and in the valleys and in all the coast of the great sea over against Lebanon, the city and
Hittite.
Emory and the okay and the Canaanites and the Pezerites and I don't know all the Yevites. These are Hebrew translations of this, so I don't know how to pronounce them.
Yeah, no worries.
And they gathered themselves together to fight with Yahusha and with Yashrael with one accord. I kind of find that pretty cool that Joshua and Yahusha's named the same. Uh, and when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard that what Yahusha has done to Jericho and to Ai, they did work willy, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses and wineskins old and rent and bound up, and old shoes and clouded upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all the bread of their provisions was dry and moldy. And they went to El Yeshua unto the camp of Gilgal, and said unto him, and to the men of Yashrael, we have come from a far country. Now, therefore, cut ye a covenant with us. And the men of Yashrael said unto the Shivim, perchance ye dwell among us, and how shall we cut a covenant with you? And they said to El Yeshua, we are your servants. And Yeshua said to them, who are ye? And from whence come ye? And they said unto him, from a very far country, your servants are come because of the name of Yahusha Eliakah. For they have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Mitzrayim, and all that he did to the two kings of Emorim that were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, which was at Ashroth. Wherefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spoke to us, saying, take victuals with you for our journey, and go to meet them, and say unto them, we are your servants. Therefore now cut ye a covenant with us. This our bread we took hot for our provisions out of our houses on the day we came forth to go unto you. But now, behold, it is dry, and it is moldy. And these wineskins which we filled were new, and behold, they be rent. And these our garments and our shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. And the men took of their victuals, and asked not counsel at the mouth of Yahweh. And Yeshua made peace with them, and cut a covenant with them, to let them live. And the prince of the assembly swore unto them. And it came to pass at the end of 3 days, after they had cut a covenant with them, that they heard that they were their neighbors, and they dwelt among them. And the children of Yashrael journeyed, and came into their cities on the 3rd day. Now their city was Gibeon, and what's that word? Kifra, and Beroth, and and the children of Yashrael smote them not, because the princes of the assembly had sworn unto them by Yahuwah Eloi, of Yashrael. And all the assembly murmured against the princes. But all the princes said unto all the assembly, we have sworn unto them by Yahuwah Eloi of Yashrael. Now, therefore, we may not touch them. This we will do to them. We will even let them live. lest wrath be upon us, because of the oath which we swore unto them. And the princes said unto them, Let them live, but let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water unto the assembly. And the princes had promised them, as the princes had promised them. And Yeshua called for them, and he spoke unto them, saying, Wherefore have you beguiled us, saying, We are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Well, when you dwell among us. Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall none you be freed from being bondmen, and hewers of wood, and drawers of water, for the house of Elohim. For the house of Elohim. And they answered Yeshua and said, Because it was certainly told to your servants, how that Yahuwah Eloheka commanded his servants Moshe to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were sore afraid of our lives because of you, and have done these things. And now, behold, we are in your hand, as it seems good and right unto you to do unto us do. And so did he upon them, and deliver them out of the hand of the children of Yashrael, that they slew them not. And Yeshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the assembly and for the altar of Yahuwah, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose.
Sweet, thank you much for that. What were we gonna say, Frankie?
No, I'm good.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying thank you. I don't know if you hot mic'd or whatever, but sweet.
No, I think that might have been me. I was going to say I know I'm at the minority here, but I know it is sort of a debate amongst a few people about the serpent seed. However, this is kind of given a good detail as to what my view of the serpent seed could be, because we see these people that disguise themselves. Basically, they tore their clothes and made it look like they traveled from a very far country, which actually they were just right down the road. But anyway, Joshua accepted them into Israel, and they were the bad guys. They were these enemies that Yahuwah told them to go and smite them all, get them out of their land, right? But Joshua accepted them into Israel, and to this day, it says in the very last verse, it says, to this day, in the place which you should choose, that they're going to be woodcutters and water drawers to this day. So I just wanted to kind of make that point that even if someone is from the line of Cain, who I believe is from the serpent in the garden, they still have an opportunity for salvation. They still can be grafted into Israel. So we see even back then, even before Yeshua or Jesus, the Messiah, the people were still being grafted into Israel. We saw when they came out of Egypt, it was the Jews and a mixed multitude, and the mixed multitude actually outnumbered the Jews, like 1.5 million more of the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt. And now we see that Joshua is accepting other grafted in to go kill across the Jordan, to wipe out across the Jordan. So anyway, I wanted to bring that point up.
Sweet, thanks for that, brother. Sweet. Okay, so I guess we'll switch over to 10, and then we'll read that, and kind of quickly that will develop into kind of our main topic for tonight. So let's get into it. So again, Joshua 10, it says, Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard now how Joshua had taken and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, So he had done to A and her king. And now the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. That they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereon were mighty. Wherefore Azadek king of Jerusalem went unto Hoham king of Hebron, and unto Piram king of Jermuth, and unto Japhiah king of Lachish, and unto Debrar king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me, and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp of Gilgad, saying, Slack not thy hand from thy servants, come up to us quickly, and save us, and help us. For all the kings of Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thy hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgad all night. And the Lord discomforted them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Bethrahon, and smote them to Azakai, and unto Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled before Israel, and were in the going down to Bethrahon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. There were more which died with hailstones, that they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spoke Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still on Gibeon, and thou, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Okay, so we're going to take a little sidestep there, and kind of focus in on these specific verses right here. So I want to kind of point out a couple things real quickly. So in Joshua 10:12, when it says, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. So I just want to kind of, set the context for what these words are. So when it says stand still, okay, so let's look at this word. Oh, I have this in incorrect order, so bear with me. It is, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so, and just to show you that that's the word, dalim, to grow or to be or grow dumb, silent, or still. So to grow still. Okay, so meaning it's slow, it's slowing down. Now, we're not given a context of the speed at which it stood still, but we know that it grew to be still, meaning it stopped. And this is talking again, O sun, stand still over Gibeon. And of course, this stand still is saying to the moon, is being said to the moon as well. And real quickly, it also points out these 2 specific places, Gibeon for the sun, and the valley of Ajalon for the moon. So I actually want to bring those up. So the Gibeon is actually a Levitical city in Benjamin. So I thought that was really interesting. So the sun is standing over the Levitical city of Benjamin, and then uh, Ajalon, the valley of Ajalon, means deer, the name of several cities in the Philistines. Well, of course, this whole property, and just I think it's interesting. Deer is clean meat. So for those that eat meat, they are clean food. And I think that's interesting. Instead of being like the valley of the swine or whatever. And then to continue on into 13, we have so the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance upon its enemy. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. So
It,
going down, bring up this word. Go ahead, Frankie.
I'm sorry, I was getting
Oh,
on my cat.
no worries. So this is Strong's word 935 or bow, to come in, to come, to go in, to go. So this word to set doesn't mean to. It literally means to come towards you and to go. So just pointing that out. It doesn't mean it is. It means it's moving. It's not moving. But anyways, and then that last piece. Oh no, we talked about that. Okay, so I kind of wanted to set that up real quick because the next thing I want to talk about is talking about specifically those verses. Now I'm going to read it again one more time. So it says, then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon the enemy. So the reason why I read that again is because not only is the language saying that the moon is stopping, the sun and the moon are stopping, and it even gives specific places of which they're stopping over, but it I want to talk about what that means, from a logical perspective. Now, that being said, I'll show you here. So this is a Forbes article, and it says, our motion through space isn't a vortex, but something far more interesting. So they link this video, which is here. We're going to watch it real quick. Now I am going to mute the sound so that there's no issues, and I'm going to kind of skip through this. So they're basically saying this is what we were all taught. This is what we all thought the planetary motions were. The sun was just, slowly moving, and everything was, but this is a boring thing. Our system moves, space at 70,000 kilometers an hour. Now picture this instead. Now this is the scientific view on how our, through the heliocentric model, what is going on with the celestial bodies, i.e. the planets, and what's going on with our sun. Now, as we can all see, this is spiraling through, and all the different so-called planets are following along. Now, let's stop it for a second. Now, is this what happened when Joshua prayed and said, Father, stop the moon, stop the sun over Gibeon, and stop the moon over Ajalon? Is this what he meant? He just stopped the sun? Now, obviously, there are people that would say, well, that is the miracle. The miracle is for every, this is how grand the Father is, that something like this could happen. Now, I'm sure you've all seen that before, but I want to go ahead and go over to this other video and show y'all. And we'll talk about this a little bit. Of course, I'm going to mute the sound again. So it says, what would happen if the Earth stopped spinning? It would be possible that one day, billions of years from now, the Earth will stand still. But chances are that other events will occur before, such as the sun swallowing up the planet. With that being said, there isn't a chance that the Earth will suddenly stop spinning anytime soon. But let's just assume for a moment that the Earth did suddenly stop rotating and take a look at what would happen to us all and the planet.
I'd like to
1,000 miles per hour as it orbits the sun, but as you get closer to the poles, the rotation is slower. Without this rotation, life as we know it wouldn't be possible. It is said that for billions of years ago, our planet used to spin much faster than it does now. In the beginning, our young solar system, an unknown planet of large celestial body, collided with the Earth, and now is in that collision, the Earth's alignment and the rotation were changed, and the moon was formed. Since then, the Earth's rotation has been slowing down. It is said that the moon used to also spin faster than it does now before, and it became tidal locked with the Earth. Tidal locking is the name given to the situation when a moon of planetary objects' orbital period matches its rotation. Coincidentally, it is the same fate that affects every single large moon orbiting a great planet, and a great example of this in our own moon. In our early solar system, both the Earth and the moon rotated independently, but the Earth's gravity grabbed onto the tidal bulges and slowed down the rotation of the moon. To compensate for the losses of momentum in the system, the moon drifted away from the Earth to its current positions about 230,000 miles away. But the moon has the same impact on Earth that it does with the tidal wave forces that cause the tidal waves, slowing down the Earth's rotation bit by bit, and the moon is continuing to drift away a few centimeters a year to compensate. These are two different scenarios, and the Earth just stopped. But it wasn't a tidal lock to the sun that would experiment 6 months of sunlight and 6 months of darkness. But for the purpose of this mind experiment, let's take a look at the facts of what would happen to our planet if tidal locked to our star, the sun. First of all, we would have to consider the speed at which our planet rotates at the equator, which is roughly 1,000 miles per hour. Sudden pause would cause everything on the surface of the Earth to suddenly move at the speed of over 1,000 miles per hour. 1,600 kilometers per hour in a sideways way. Since the velocity needed to escape the Earth's gravity is over 24,800 miles per hour, everything would stay tacked to the Earth, yet jolted forward. Imagine suddenly everything moving across the planet of 1,000 miles per hour. It wouldn't matter what it was. Everything would experience a sideways deceleration of 3/4 of the Earth's gravity. Suddenly down would be at the angle of 38 degrees from vertical. The forces of the sudden stop would rip buildings right off their foundation and send them flying across the ground with everything else that is solid bedrock, destroying everything in a giant and deadly debris path. But that's not all. That would also include oceans that would suddenly shot sideways across the planet, with waves being miles and miles high, moving at the same velocity. Fear, fear, fear. Imagine tsunamis so high you couldn't see the top. Just a wall of water racing towards you at 1,000 miles per hour. Fear, fear, fear. But both of them two calamities would end the most life as we know it. Although the Earth would stop spinning, the atmosphere would continue to spin at the Earth's same velocity, which would create high winds and nasty storms. Because the Earth rotates centrifugal forces, the planet to bulge along the axis would have no bulge, and without the bulge of all the extra water held in place along with the equator would go rushing back towards the poles. If the Earth stopped spinning, you would have to take into consideration the inner core of the Earth is spinning at a faster rate. Just because the surface was slowed down doesn't mean the core of the Earth has stopped too. We only know that because of CGI. Our highly volcanic planet would erupt in ways we never imagined as tectonic forces above and below would enter. Supervolcanic would likely erupt across the entire planet. Our tidal-locked Earth would have half of the planet always facing the sun, and the other half would always be in permanent darkness. Currently, our planet is what is called a Goldilocks zone, or habitable zone, which is perfect distance from the sun in order to support life. There might be still places on Earth where the climate But the two extreme sides would have proved difficult to life to survive, assuming that anything survived the previous catastrophes. If there were any appreciable amount of life left on the surface of the planet, it would not only have to survive the twilight strip of land between. We are far enough away from our star to burn or turn to ashes overnight. However, the atmosphere on the hot side of the planet would start to erode. The portion of the Earth always in the direct sunlight would receive more direct sunlight, resulting in more heat, and therefore higher temperatures would cause strong rain and increase of weathering. Normal weathering regulates the climates, but now you have one side of the planet hotter than the other side, cooler on the other side. Atmospheric gases would build up and create even more heat. This is called the runaway greenhouse effect. Global warming. Clouds of glass would significantly increase the temperatures, so the oceans would boil much like what we've happened to Venus. The middle of the planet, which we've never been to, facing the sun of the equator of the stellar point, would end up hot, that almost nothing could survive. The cold side of the planet on the other side would have difficult storms. The loss of the sun's heat and the dark side of the Earth would turn the atmosphere into a dense gas, then condense into a liquid, and then further condense into a solid of ice. Of course, it is doubtful that the atmosphere of the dark side would turn into a solid form. Instead, it would keep condensing and expanding, and would pull air from the hot side of the planet where the gases in the atmosphere would be expanding. With this happening, it might be possible that the atmosphere would make the planet livable. But the storms that would come from this exchange of hot and cold air would be unimaginable. They would be superstorms on both sides of the planet, with the wind being strong enough to strip the very rock and erode it. And the next thing that would likely happen would be the magnetic field of the Earth would stop regenerating and slowly decay over time. For this reason, it is because the magnetic field of the Earth is generated by a dynamo effect that involves its rotation. Our magnetic field plays a huge role in keeping our atmosphere intact, and this magnetic field also protects the Earth from cosmic rays. Where would this leave us? We are a very adaptable species, but this seemed to survive other catastrophes, and even though we have powerful technology in being able to survive our planet with the stop spinning, the tidal lock to the sun would be a great challenge. And we would be able to control our environment to a degree by moving. But growing our food in such conditions may be difficult. However, it shouldn't worry about happening anytime soon. As physicists have predicted, it would be 1 billion years from now. Let us know what you do or how you would face these new challenges. Comments below. So I appreciate you all for sticking around while I have that crazy exchange. I hope that it was entertaining at the very least.
Your dramatic voice there was the only reason I could stick around and listen to that entire lie. I mean, admittance to a lie. They admitted guilt. That entire book you just read was an admittance to guilt, that they are openly telling us that they are blatantly lying to the people everywhere. They're lying to the world in that entire statement you just read.
Yeah, it was actually a YouTube video, and I muted it and just was reading the closed captions. But it is absolutely ridiculous. Like, for instance, that part where they're talking about Venus and how life is on Venus, and it's like no one's ever been there. How can you tell me what something is like where we can't get there? You even say that we can't get past low Earth orbit. So how do you know what Venus is like? So yeah, there's just so much hypocrisy, and they almost do it, like you say, openly, so that they want people to know that they're lying to their faces.
Yes.
Well,
Anyway, I'm sorry, Frank. I wasn't quite through a minute ago. It reminds me of the Book of Enoch, when the Nephilim went to Enoch and said, basically used him sort of like a lawyer, like, bring our case before the Most High. We're admitting we did wrong, so to speak. May we be forgiven. But these are angels coming to a man to bring their case before the Most High. And now we're seeing right there in that very video that you just read that is their statement to the Most High, basically asking for forgiveness, because everything that you read was it's an admitting guilt. It reminds me exactly what happened with the in the Book of Enoch.
Well, women should be able to tell us what Venus is like, because I heard women were from Venus.
But don't. Shh.
And men are from Mars. Hey, I just want to say hello to Daryl. Daryl Lee, what's up?
Oh, Shabbat Shalom, Daryl.
Yeah, brother. Glad you're able to join us. So yeah, I got one other little thing I want to share real quick. It's 8th grade physics, you know, what they try to teach. But I just want to, you know, go look at this later. Here's the thing. But I just want to point something out real quick about physics, and you know, this seems pretty obvious, but I don't think maybe people think about it. So forces. If an object is in motion and more force is applied to it, the object will begin to move faster. Okay, makes sense. If two objects have the same mass and a greater force is applied to one of the objects, the object which receives the greater force will change speed more quickly. Okay. For example, if a bar is hit harder, it will speed up faster. Makes sense. If an object must be slowed down quickly, the force applied to the object must be greater than what is needed for a gradual slowing down. For example, the greater force applied to the brakes of a bicycle, the more quickly will it slow down or stop. Okay, so the reason, and then let's just see here. I think there's one more. Here we go. In order to slow down or stop a heavier or more massive object, the force of the object must be greater than for a less massive object. Okay, that seems obvious. But the point of me sharing that is literally the fact that in order to take a globe, the massive that it is, and stop that, which in the heliocentric model, which would need to happen for, again, the events of Joshua 10, the sun stopping above the of Gibeon, the moon over the valley of Ajalon. For that to happen, the earth would have had to stop rotating. And the amount of force that would be required to stop a massive object is a big force. And then I showed you that video where they literally tells you, hey, if the earth stops spinning, all of a sudden, all of the trees, all the things that aren't bedrock, all of that would be swept to that side, you know, to that side at over 1,000 miles an hour. So we don't have anything like this recorded. Obviously, in this event, it doesn't say that anything happened. All these people were still there fighting. They were able to avenge their thing. So I guess at the very most, what those that love the Father and but claim but also claim a heliocentric model is, you have to go into that this event is ununderstandable, even though it's written plainly and clearly, that this event is ununderstandable, that is a miracle, and you're taking away, and you're saying that the reason why never did the Father hearken unto a voice of man is that specifically that he saved them from this catastrophe, which obviously we know this same event, not the same event, but a similar event happens with King, is it Melchizedek? No, maybe. I forget his name. But anyways, off the top of my head. But so yeah, I just really wanted to share that with everyone, because the ridiculousness of this type of model, being what modern churches, what mainline churches also participate in this belief. And I know I'm kind of speaking to the choir. Hopefully maybe there are people that do believe in this model and kind of check what I'm saying and what we're saying in Scripture and can see that this doesn't logically make sense. What were you going to say, Anthony?
I gotta say something about. I know you're passionate about this. I know a lot of people are about questioning whether it's a globe or a stationary plane, like Scripture said. I I I am feeling extreme anxiousness and anxiety just by listening to the question of it. I am being told right now that we need to start teaching this as it is fact, because we know that there is no such thing as a heliocentric globe. We know that everything tests out to be a flat stationary plane. Okay, we know this, and I don't think that there should ever be a question, even in presentation, on the matter anymore. And like I said, man, the reason I'm intervening is because I'm getting extreme anxiousness and anxiety over just listening to the question of it. And the reason I bring this up is because I questioned it several years ago, and I spent I don't know how many hours uh, studying it until one night I prayed. I diligently prayed because I realized it was affecting my life. All the research and experiments and everything was costing me my livelihood. And when I laid down, I went to praying, and all of a sudden, like mid prayer, I didn't even get the question out. Actually, um, I was like, Yahweh, you've got to tell me what it is. And there was somebody in my room that said, I said what I said. I jumped up out of bed. I grabbed a shotgun or the pistol or something. I cleared my house. Somebody was in my house, right? But there was no one there. From that day forward, I didn't question it anymore. And just by listening to this presentation, which I think is extremely good, Vader Bear, I'm not trying to knock it any whatsoever. I think you did a lot of research into it, but I really feel like that it is a factual thing, and we should never even put it out there as a question again.
No, I get what you're saying, but not everyone believes that, right? So there has to be some humility in there when we say these things, because you know a lot of people that are in the mainline Christian community, they haven't ever looked at the scriptures this way. They've never taken the time to really think about what this event means and what that would mean for, you know, for creation. So I think it is
Right.
important to kind of show that there are people that think that way, and how, you know, how silly it is. And I think we should mock it. I think it's ridiculous. You know, that video, I did a ridiculous voice because it's ridiculous. They don't know any of that information. They can't prove that. They say it spins at 1,000 miles an hour. You know, there's the Michelson Morley experiment, which literally showed that proved that we can't show motion or rotation of the Earth. We can't measure that. And then we got special relativity to cover that up. So like, I just think that even though, you know, and I think obviously, if you look at our history, right, we cover way more scripture than we do, the quote unquote flat Earth. But I think it is still important every now and then to look in it, and to definitely when it comes up in scripture, right? We're going through Joshua, and this pretty big event happens so much that he says, you know, not since then has the Lord hearkened unto the voice of man, you know, never before or after. So I think it's a pretty big event.
Yes, I agree that it's a huge event, but is so much more to this than just trying to prove a stationary Earth.
Oh,
There's
of course.
so much to this section of, and I don't want people to miss what it's really trying to say. I don't want people to miss the like take it out of context to the rest of the story, to the rest of the chapter.
I don't get what you mean. How it's taking it? We literally read 8, 9, and then 10. How's that taking out of the context of the chapter?
It's because the sun and moon hearken to the voice of a man.
No.
How?
No.
What?
No, he prayed. No, it says he prayed to the Father, to stop those things, and the Father said, not a day before or since has the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man. So it was obviously the Father that stopped those. It wasn't Joshua who
Totally.
had the power to just stop the sun and the moon. It was his relationship with the Father, his diligence in keeping the commandments laid out by the Father and through Moses, his successor.
I get all that, but do you think that that Yahweh would have even listened to Joshua if up until this point that he was breaking his law or breaking the commandments or anything?
I
We
don't.
see up to this point has not done anything wrong. So
I'm getting a lot of background noise from someone. Oh, that was Sean. Hey there, Sean.
Hey, what's up,
You
Sean?
see him getting a lot of background music or noise.
I think he's driving.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm not driving. I'm in the studio.
uh,
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm getting a lot of background noise, like a fan or something. Oh, there you go.
He's driving.
No, he says he's at the studio. He literally just said that.
I thought he said he was driving.
No.
Hey, what's up, guys? In fact, I'm not driving. I'm about to be raiding.
You're about to be raiding? Are you raiding us?
Yes.
Nice.
So let me just start my broadcast and I'll bring my peoples over.
Sweet, appreciate it.
Alright, just give me a few minutes. I'll be back.
Alrighty.
quick though, right quick to finish my point right quick, y'all. I just want to bring out the importance of keeping the Torah because up until this point, Joshua had kept the Torah just as it was given to Moses and just as Moses commanded the people of Israel. And that is why, and that's what like gave him the ability to even speak to the Father and even ask him to stop the sun and moon there. So there's a lot more to this statement.
I literally, you may have missed it when I said it. I literally said because Joshua listened to the commandments that Moses was given and was given to him, and he followed those commandments, that's why he was able to do what he was able to do. And he obviously, and we've already seen this through 8 and 9, but before when we were showing about the walls of Jericho, where they are being very specific to keep those commandments exactly the way that Moses had showed them. And we're seeing the victory, the miracles, the amazing things that are happening because Joshua is keeping his heart for the Father.
Right. And anyway, that's what I was trying to like point out is yes, we're using these verses to basically prove that there's no heliocentric globe, but I just don't want people to miss that particular part of it either. I wanted to make sure that everybody's seeing, keeping this story in the context with the chapter as well. Yes, I'm totally with you on the point that you're making about using this to say, hey, if the the earth were to slow down or to even stop at some point in time, see that right there is their admittance to not having the calendar right because they admit that they claim the earth has been slowing down over time. That would mess up the calendar, right? So they admit that the Gregorian calendar is not right. I'm not going to sit here and say that the calendar I keep is correct. See, I personally think that this particular event is why everybody's calendar is off, though. I don't think even anybody really has the correct calendar because of this event taking place.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I think the sun was out at night.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's such a big prayer, because when Joshua prayed this, like to him, it was just like, hey, I need more sunlight so that we can gain our revenge. but what the prayer really meant is that the Father was kind of changing time, like he took a day here. And then we also kind of see that with King Hezekiah, where he asked it to go backward, right? So like those definitely, like, at least in my view, the sky piece, what we're looking up when we look up, is this, for lack of a better term, a device. And this device, if it was reset or stopped, would change the course of time. So I definitely think along those lines, at least personally.
Yes, and when it comes to Hezekiah, I agree with you there as well. But however, I think at his point in time, I don't think it really would have mattered at that point. It could have made the sun go completely backwards for a whole day, and it wouldn't have mattered at that point, because I think this time of Joshua and him commanded the sun and the moon to stand still. I think that is where everybody couldn't keep up with the calendar, because everybody's a day off or a week off or a month off or whatever, everybody is. So anyway, I'm agreeing with you when it comes to Hezekiah as well.
Sweet. All right. Well, I feel like we sufficiently went over at least the cosmology part of it, but I feel like we should at least finish. It should finish the rest of 10. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we will get into just kind of at that point our general conversation about the topic or anything else anyone wants to add. So let me pull that up for everyone.
My anxiety has left me. I'm not anymore.
Sweet. So we stopped in 14. So 15, and said, and Joshua returned and all Israel with him unto the camp to Gilgad. But these 5 kings fled and hid themselves in the cave at Makkedah. And it was told Joshua, saying, the 5 kings are found hid in a cave at Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, and set men by it for them to keep them. And stay ye not, but pursue after your enemies, and smite their hindmost of them, suffer them not to enter into their cities, for the Lord your God hath delivered them into your hands. And it came to pass, when Joshua and the children of Israel had made an end of slaying them with a great slaughter, till they were consumed, that the rest which remained on them entered into the fenced cities. Oh, look, sounds like Sean is back. What's up, brother?
Hey, brother, welcome. Or welcome as I jump into yours, because I'm bringing home the audience over to you guys. So,
Sweet.
Welcome to Kingdom Cast as well. Hope you guys are having a good night. Sounds like a fun discussion tonight. We hope to liven it up in the live chat. Hopefully, we're going to add some people here.
Sweet, yeah. And if y'all want to hear a sarcastic reading of some heliocentric model, maybe jump back a little bit. I think it was pretty interesting. But anyways,
So I think all the people that are watching my channel can see me, and I'm sharing my screen of the Discord with all of you guys as avatars. But then if they go to your channel to participate in the live chat, they're going to see you guys putting the scripture on the screen.
Sweet.
So that way they get double the video, behind the scenes and everything tonight.
Nice, awesome. Well, appreciate you doing that. Welcome to everyone that's joining us.
Yeah, that's a nice green screen you got going.
Right.
Shabbat shalom to everybody from over there too. Blessings to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to shout it out, we are doing at our 500. We're 7 away from that 500 mark. So as soon as we hit that, go ahead and go vote. It's on the Take on the World. Once that happens, we're going to be given, I think right now it looks like it's going to be a shofar. So as long as you're subscribed and you have left at least one comment, you'll be entered in a drawing. So you have a 1 in a 500 chance basically of winning yourself a nice shofar. So look into that. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this reading so we can get into the conversation, and then we'll kind of move from there. So where was I at? And it came to pass when Joshua, children of Israel, had made an end of slaying with them with a great slaughter till they were consumed, with the rest remained entered into the fenced cities. And all the people returned to the camp to Joshua and Makkedah in peace. None moved their tongue against any of the children of Israel. Then said Joshua, open the mouth of the cave and bring out those 5 kings unto me out of the cave. And they did so, and brought forth those 5 kings unto him out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And it came to pass, when they brought out these kings unto Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said unto the captains of the men of war, which went with him, come near, put your feet upon the necks of these kings. And they came near, and put their feet upon the necks of them. And Joshua said unto them, fear not, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for this shall be the Lord do to all your enemies against ye fight. And afterward Joshua smote them, and slew them, and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. And it came to pass at the time of the going down of the sun, that Joshua commanded that they took them down off the trees, and cast them into the cave wherein they had been hid, and laid great stones in the cave's mouth, and remained there until this very day. And that day Joshua took Makkedah, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereon he utterly destroyed, them and all the souls that were therein. He let none remain, and did to the king of Makkedah as he did unto the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Makkedah, and Israel with him, unto Libnah, and fought against Libnah. And the Lord delivered it also, and the king thereon, into the hand of Israel. And he smote it with the edge of the sword, and with all the souls that were therein. He let none remain in it, but did unto the king thereon as he did to the king of Jericho. And Joshua passed from Libnah, and all Israel with him, unto Lachish, and encamped against it, and fought against it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel, which took it on the 2nd day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam king of Gezer came up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people until he had left him none remaining. And from Lachish Joshua passed unto Eglon, and all Israel with him, and they encamped against it, and fought against it. And they took it on that day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that there within he utterly destroyed that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. And Joshua went from Eglon, and all Israel with him, unto Hebron, and they fought against it. And they took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword. And the king thereon, and all the cities thereof, and all the souls that were therein, he left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly, and all the souls that were therein. And Joshua turned, and Israel with him, to Dibri, and fought against it. And he took it, and the king thereon, and all the cities thereon, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed all the souls that were therein. He left none remaining. And as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir, and to the king thereon, as he had done also to Libnah, and to her king. So Joshua smote all the country of the hills, and of the south, and of the vale, and of the springs, and of their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathe, as the Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua smote them from Kabdeshabarina even unto Giza, and all the country of Goshen even unto Gibeon. And all these kings and their lands did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord of God fought for Israel. And Joshua turned, and all Israel with him, unto the camp to Gilgad. So, appreciate y'all hanging in there. And so, yeah, that's kind of the reading. So, yeah, I think we covered, everything that we wanted to cover, at least tonight. But, of course, we're going to get into the open conversation. Anyone got anything burning a thought in their mind? I think you're hot micing a little bit, so then it is cutting him out. Because you can kind of see your mic staying lit up. Yeah. Oh, my bad. I was saying if you look at Discord, you'll see that you have a little green. Oh, I just had a. Yeah, I stopped talking. I just had an issue pop up. Okay, there we go. What I was saying was, sorry guys, I know the sound went out. I just fixed it. If you look at Discord, you'll see your little symbol is glowing green. So you can either, if you go into the settings, just a little toolbar, and then go to voice and sound, there'll be a little, what is it called? Um, Let me pull it up 1 second. I gotta look at
A
it.
microphone, and it'll say
Yeah.
mute on.
No, right under microphone, it'll say voice activated. If you see that automatically determine input sensitivity, click that off and then set it down a little bit, and that should kick out the fan and all that from the background.
Whatever happened worked.
Yeah.
How much of that were y'all able to hear? I can go back over it.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and
go
ahead and repeat it.
Okay. We were talking about verse 12 earlier about. Let's see. The last sentence you wrote, the next to the last verse is, look how far Yeshua fought the enemy. From where he was to the entirety Goshen as far as Gibeon, right? So he fought from where he was this day to the end of Gibeon. So we see the sun stood still at Gibeon. So did Joshua fight for 93 million miles that day?
No, I think it's saying, like, with all the things were going on, like, because I don't know, at least it makes sense to me. If you were doing fights, if you took a city, I think you would leave a remnant of your forces, right? Like, that's the only thing I guess it kind of makes sense to me about it.
No, yeah, totally. But what I'm getting at is we see that Joshua back in verse 12 told the sun to stand still at Gibeon. Okay, now I'm reading from the Septuagint right now. It says, sun stands still at Gibeon, and moon over ravine of Ajalon. But then in verse 41, it says, it's telling how far he fought that day, like from where he commanded the sun to stop, wherever he was. From that point, he went forward, he moved forward, he pressed forward with his armies and took them out, right? As far as Gaza, the entirety Goshen, as far as Gibeon. So did he fight for 93 million miles that day? Did he go all through space?
I don't get what you mean by 93 million miles.
They claim that the sun in the heliocentric model, which actually doesn't even exist anymore, that the sun is 93 million miles away. So where is Gibeon? Anyway, okay, I'll have to explain one day. But one other thing I'd like to sort of point out, I think it's verse 14. No, yeah, the Septuagint in Joshua 10:14, it says, and there has been no day like this, neither before nor since, that God would listen to a human, because the Lord joined in war with Israel. Now, doesn't other translations say, isn't this not written in the book of Joshua? Or isn't this written in the book of Joshua?
That's 13.
Oh, is it 13? Okay.
Mhm. It does
Yeah,
say, is
okay,
it
my
not
bad.
written this in the book of Joshua?
All right, I'll read 13 from the Septuagint. It says, and the sun stood still, and the moon was in its position until God warded off his enemies. And the sun stood at the middle of the sky. It did not go backward nor forward to setting until the end of one day. And that's all of 13 in the Septuagint. But I'd also like to mention that the in the Masoretic, the book of Joshua is mentioned 2 times in the canon of 66. The other place is in 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 18. Can you pull that one up for the with the KJV or something?
Yeah, what was that again? I'm sorry.
It's 2 Samuel verse chapter 1 verse 18.
Yeah, I'll pull that up.
But I'm going to read it the Greek Septuagint. Now, it doesn't say 2 Samuel in the Septuagint. It says 2 Kingdoms. But it's almost word for word with the Masoretic of 2 Samuel chapter 1, or the whole book really. But I'm going to read it from here, and it says, and he said to teach the sons of Judah the song, look, it is written in the document of the righteous. Now, it changed the word Joshua. One changed the word. I would like to know which, but almost every translation that I read says Joshua.
So Joshua is just the issue with that is the way that it's written. Now it's written in a plurality, so it shouldn't be a name. It was just mistranslated as a name. But the correct translation of that word, not the book of Jasher, but what you just said, the book of the righteous or whatever. That's the act. Yeah, that's the actual word. The book of Jasher is, from at least what I've seen, is just it's mistranslated. It shouldn't be a name.
Right. It is the book of the righteous. Yashar is where it comes from. But what I wanted to point out about that is it mentions, the Septuagint mentions the document of the righteous in 2 Kingdoms 1:18. So why wouldn't it have had said in Joshua 10:13 the document of the righteous as well? Instead, it just excludes the whole word altogether.
I just want to state we are now at 503. So the vote is now ended. I want to pull that up real quick. Sorry to steal some of your time real quick. But the vote over here on Take of the World, we'll go ahead and put it on shofar, was 50%. So that will be a thing. Make sure we're going to start getting this ready to send out that shofar. So make sure you leave at least one comment on on at least one video, and that you're subscribed. And as long as you hit those, we'll do a randomized roll, and whoever that is will contact you and give you send that shofar out to you. So thank you so much. For those that are subscribing and continue to subscribe, it really helps us grow the community. For those that are new here, what we do here in Closed Cosmology Fellowship, we have that puzzle piece. That puzzle piece is what we're all bringing to the table. We each have our own puzzle pieces and our own looks out things. We're all right, and we all have things that we're correct about, and we all have things that we're incorrect about. So we come to this table and as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens one another, and for to sharpen iron, sharpening iron, that requires heat, friction, and the removal of material. So we have to be able to go through that heat and friction of conversations and ego checks, and again, conversations we're not comfortable with, or that things that we've held to because we were taught that. And be able to remove those materials when the Father points them out to us. And so we're just so thankful that we're continue to go. Obviously our next milestone is 1,000. So we'll do something special for that as well. But just wanted to stop and shout that out. Thank you all that help us get there. So
Vader. So we still have a chance to leave a comment.
Yep, we still have a chance to leave a comment.
Okay,
We'll do this till next Friday. So next show we'll read out who the winner is, and then we'll get in contact with you about getting it sent to you.
Sweet. Well, thank you very much for that, Vader Bear, and I'd like to thank everybody again for coming out, because I really do. I really want to present that particular question to the panel and to anybody that's listening. Why did either the Greek Septuagint leave out the word Yashar in Joshua 10:13, or why did the Masoretic add the word to it? I'm under the impression that the Septuagint was translated in like 250 or something BCE, and supposedly is the second oldest translation of the original Hebrew scrolls that I'm aware of. So anyway, that is a few questions that I want to present to the panel and anybody listening.
I already kind of gave my answer. If anyone else has thoughts about that, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I mean, you told us what the word meant and everything, but I mean, why was it either added to or left out?
I'm saying I think it's mistranslated. So I think some reason, like the reason why it was added over as the book of Jasher or Yasher is because they took that word and did it like a book of whatever, instead of it being the book of upright, which is like a plural. They did book of Jasher, which is shouldn't be a plural. Like names are not plural. So I think I don't know. Let me finish what I was saying. I don't know if there's any motive about it, why they would do that, or if it was an honest mistake. Who knows? Because it's not like it's hidden either. It's not hidden either way. That like you can find that information pretty easily.
No, I'm not asking about the translation of the word. I'm asking about the existence altogether. They had, if whether they mistranslated it or they translated it correctly, and whichever one did, that's not the question. The question is, there had to have been a word to translate somewhere, right? Was it removed or was it added? There had to have been a point for them to translate it from, right?
Sean, you got anything on this?
You guys can't hear me.
Yeah, we can.
You can hear
Well,
you
I turned on voice activity again.
And it's okay. No worries. Go ahead. We can hear you now.
Is there any feedback?
It sounds like there's a little, not feedback, but there's a little fan. But you're fine. Go ahead, brother.
Might check. Yeah, there's no fan. Yeah, I'm sorry guys for the audio issues. I was trying to make this helpful to you guys, but it's my audience can hear me, but I don't know if you guys can hear me very well.
Fine, we can hear you fine.
But there's multiple versions of the Septuagint. We have to keep in mind in the first century A.D., the Pharisees of that day commissioned I think 3 additional Septuagints to be recorded because they didn't like how much of the prophecy was being fulfilled from the 250 BC translated Septuagint. So they commissioned variations to be made. Those variations are well documented, and were eventually, I think the second one, the Theodosian Septuagint translation, ended up becoming the foundation for the Latin Septuagint, or excuse me, the Vulgate, the Latin Vulgate, with Jerome in the 4th century A.D. So this is why we've always said the Septuagint is great to cross-reference and compare. It's not perfect, just like the Masoretic's not perfect. That's why whenever anyone asks us what translation to use, I say we use as many as we can.
I totally agree, but I wanted to let everybody know I was reading that from the Lexham English Septuagint. It just says LXX on it.
Yeah, brother, but that's a modern Septuagint translation that they pulled from ancient Greek Septuagint scrolls, if I could say it like that. So it's not an original Septuagint. The Lexham is, even though it's a great translation, it's not the original still. There is no original at this point. It's all variants of from the 1st century AD. There's all variants now that we have passed down through history.
And I was just pointing out that was the one I was reading from just then, and I totally agree.
Yeah, so what's interesting is the Book of the Just, or Yashur as it's referred to phonetically in the English, is supposedly translated in the 15th century. The most recent translation, anyway, was from a 15th century rabbi from the 15th century. So that would have, and this would have been someone that was a devout follower of Judaism, not the Messiah. Not that that has any bearing on the timeline of events mentioned in Jasher, but it's just I don't know. I don't know why they would have not mentioned this moment in Joshua chapter 10 in the same regard, or not mentioned the Book of the Just in the same way in the Septuagint versus why the Masoretic mentions it. There's a lot of things in the modern Masoretic that are not there that are in the original Septuagint, and vice versa. So this is why we one of the first few videos we ever mentioned the Septuagint on our channel, we try to remind people that there's about 90% of the quotations in the New Testament from the apostles and Yeshua are quoting from the Septuagint Old Testament, but there's still others that we find in the Masoretic. So the remaining 10%, at least this is some stat that I read. I saw someone took the time to diligently take all the quotations in the New Testament that were quoting the Old Testament books, and then they were showing which ones were out of the Septuagint and which ones were only found in the Masoretic, and it's like 90 to 10 basically. And so there are some things still found only in the Masoretic that are not in the Septuagint, and vice versa. This is why we have such a convoluted history of how we got our Bible and all the different change of hands of manuscripts. This is why we always try to encourage people that the story's still there. It's just some of the little details in the story sometimes get changed or left out, but the big pieces of the story are still there. So that's what's important.
Totally, and it's almost like those that that sow seed, sow tear in the fields, right? Like all of those, getting those other Septuagints together and publishing them up was sowing seeds of confusion, right? Because now we're like, wait, there's all this overlap, and so yeah, we do have to look at everything in order to get more of the information. But I agree, the full picture is still there.
This is what I did some quotations and a video I did about two and a half years ago called "Proving the Pharisees Removed Scripture to Hide the Messiah," and I showed some of the discrepancies in the Septuagint, and I showed how quotations from Justin Martyr in the 2nd century, about 157 AD, where he's actually calling out one of these Jewish leaders in Corinth. His name was Trypho. This is from an ancient book called the Dialogue with Trypho by Justin Martyr, and it's basically him having a conversation with a modern day Jewish leader in Corinth, and he's telling him, "I know that your ilk, your Pharisees, and the other rabbis like you who reject the Messiah, I know that you guys have been changing the scriptures to hide the Messiah, because we still have the original scriptures from 100 years ago, and we're seeing the new ones you guys are producing. And so this is what's so fascinating about this whole dialogue with Trypho, because he's actually calling out specific places where the Pharisees were chopping up scripture in order to hide Yeshua. So that doesn't apply directly to Joshua chapter 10 or the mention of the book of the just. It just gives you some insight into how throughout the years, um, the manuscripts that were passed down to us had some tinkering involved for specific reasons. But this is where, I've always said there's no perfect translation, there's no perfect manuscript, and we always just try to focus on the context of the big ideas, so that we don't get bogged down in such details, that. And of course, that's, on the other extreme, if the pendulum swung to the other extreme, you have like staunch Southern Baptists saying that the 15th century KJV is the unrefined, pure, and unadulterated Word of God, which which is hilarious, because it's like they got some of that from the Textus Receptus and the Vulgate and all this stuff, and they don't even have a clue where apparently those came from 1400 years before. So it's just interesting to see what people decide to focus on. And so, Anthony, to your point, I think it's fascinating that there is no mention of the Book of the Just in the Septuagint. I think that's interesting, and I do think that it's interesting that, according to manuscript history, one of the earliest references that we know of the Book of Yeshua, the Book of the Just, was from a 15th century rabbi in Spain. So I know that Dr. Pigeon has mentioned he thinks that there are other manuscripts earlier than that, but I've never seen it shown to me. So this is where I've always struggled to find a lot of weight or credibility in the Book of the Just, in the Book of Joshua.
Yeah, and kind of to add to what my question, the reason I'm even asking the question to in general is because I'm questioning the modern Book of Joshua that we have today. Anyway, there was some things in it that had been brought to my attention over about the last 2 years, and when I first read the Book of Joshua, it seemed, oh, this is a great book. I love it, and it felt like it went right along with all of the rest of the scripture that I read. But then I was shown a few things that was pointed out where it maybe not necessarily contradicts, but like, for example, in Joshua 10, where it says, "Is this not written in the book of Joshua?" Well, it's not. I don't see it in the book of Joshua. So that's one of the things that made me start to question the modern day book of Joshua. And that's kind of why I had the question about, well, why is it left out in the Septuagint, kind of thing. Because I'm trying to look into all of this. And at this point, I'm going to say that the modern day book of Joshua is very questionable. However, I do like to read from it now.
Yeah, it's interesting in some parts for sure. Sweet.
I definitely agree with you. It's definitely questionable, not just on small things, but on also larger conceptual ideas as well. So it seems very fantastical in some of the stories, but also it seems to be very logical in some places, because it gives you details that we don't get in the other canon. Um, but when you really start digging into the details, very similar to Og, and how Og picked up a piece of the mountain and was going to throw it on the entirety of the children of Israel, who spanned a 12-mile span. I think this is in chapter 91 of the book of Joshua. So then you're talking about him picking up a mountain and throwing it onto a people group traveling over a course of 12 miles. Right? So I don't know how that works. And then, of course, the rest of the story is, as he's holding it above his head, it breaks in two, falls on him, and hurts him. And you're like, okay, so it wasn't him picking it up with the power of some mystical weapon. It was literally him holding it above his head. And you're like, wait a minute, how is this? What is this saying here? What is going on here? So there's a lot of things in there that you're just not just theologically, as far as where Enoch went. There's some problems with that in chapter 3. Not just theologically as far as the Adam and Eve concepts, or just some of the ideas of The lack of following the priesthood is a huge red flag to me, because the Bible's very, very dedicated to following the priesthood all throughout Scripture, because it leads to the Messiah. This is what we mentioned in a video I did about Rachel Eliar, the modern day Hebrew professor at the Hebrew University in Israel. She gave a speech talking about how in the first century AD that it became very obvious in her research of the Dead Sea Scrolls that the first century rabbis of Judaism who rejected Christians, they did not want people to read Enoch and Jubilees, Testament 12 Patriarchs, and talk about the word covenant, because the covenant has a leader of the covenant who's the high priest of the covenant, and the priesthood had been dispersed in AD 70 when Rome invaded. So if you're trying to keep your people of your faith, your disciples, but they're asking the logical questions, which is who makes atonement for us since our temple's been destroyed? Well, you don't want them thinking about the priesthood, and this is why we've shown quotes from first century rabbis where they were telling people, oh, don't worry about having a priesthood. Your kindness will make atonement for you. Your good deeds will make atonement for you. Don't worry about the priesthood. Whereas the Christians were following the priesthood because that was who their Messiah embodied at that point. It was Yeshua became the high priest of the covenant. And so there was it's very suspect in why certain texts and certain ideas from books were just glazed over by their Jewish leaders in the early first century, because they were dealing with what they saw was a huge problem with all these people believing in Jesus Christ. Just my 2 cents on why certain things are in and out, and why Jasher is questionable, and what's not in Jasher that is highly questionable compared to all the rest of the books in Scripture.
Yeah, and I just, the part where you was talking about Og being 12 miles and everything, I just wanted to point out it's in Joshua chapter 85, starting in verse 21. I've been looking for that since the beginning of the show, but thank you. You gave me more. You gave me the right direction to look in. Thank you.
No problem, brother. Yeah, in fact, there's Joshua's got some fun stuff. Let me see. It looks like if we do the timeline right, it looks like it's the same Balaam, like in chapter 67. It looks like the same Balaam, which is it says he's the son of Beor, just like Numbers does, and it says that he's still alive and counseling Pharaoh, or he is alive 180 years, or excuse me, he's alive 80 years before Numbers 31, and already an elder counseling Pharaoh to commit genocide against Israel. But Yahweh didn't stop him there, but yet he stops him supposedly 80 years later on the donkey when he goes to curse Israel at the request of Balak, king of the Midianites. So it's just interesting stuff. It tries to give some backstory to Balaam in chapter 67, as about how he was supposedly an elder of the Egyptian pharaoh at the table with Moses. Also, same thing with Reuel of Midian. That would have been Moses' father-in-law later, so that he was also a counselor to Pharaoh seeking to kill the Israelites. That wouldn't make any sense if he's literally a descendant of them. There's some interesting things in there, especially if Reuel, if it's the same one, that would be Jethro next to chapter 18. If it's the same person that is the father of Zipporah, whom Moses married, then that means, I don't know. It's just interesting to me that how it paints the picture of some of these side characters that we see in Genesis through Exodus. And then also kind of a blatant one in chapter 71 is about the age of Moses when he actually left. It says he's 18 versus, the book of Acts, Stephen says he's 40. So
Hey, I just wanted to point out. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to point out a thing right quick about a donkey. A lot of people are unaware of this, but pretty cool story. Around here, a lot of places, people have herds of cows, herds of sheep, herds of their livestock, right? A donkey is used to keep wolves or the herd from wolves. I just wanted to point that. That's what
I'm sorry, brother, you're breaking up.
I think he said donkeys are used to keep wolves away from the herd.
That's right. People, farmers that have cows and whatever, they use donkeys to keep wolves and coyotes, to protect them.
that because they're such mean kickers?
Actually, they'll run up to them and bite them on the
Bite
back.
him on the neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually grew up with a donkey and lots of horses and a mule, and the donkeys and mules, dude, they're some fierce, mean animals when they want to be.
One day, Vader, we got to get into your whole biography because you have such a unique past. Your dad was a classic rock bass player. Now you grew up with donkeys and horses. It's so interesting, my dude.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's because of him. He was literally into that, and then he kind of had, you know, his kind of, I need to get away from this stuff and back towards, you know, like the real stuff. And then he went heavy into like, dude, like, so it's interesting. He made all his own leather gear, like the pictures I've showed you. He made his own pants and his own outfits and everything. And then he transferred that over to making his own reins and his own, you know, saddlebags and his own, you know, all that type of stuff. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, it really is awesome.
Oh, sorry guys, I just remembered something that I was hoping to say about Jasher, which was I forgot, is that in chapter 2, yeah, it's in chapter 2, it mentions something that seems very concerning as far as the timeline compared to Enoch and Jubilees. Chapter 2, verse 4 says, the sons of men went and served other gods. They forgot the Lord who created them in the earth. In those days, the sons of men made images of brass, wood, stone, bowed down to them and served them. But in verse 3, before this is every man. Okay, so I'm sorry, let me stay on track here. Verse 5, every man made his god, and they bowed down to him. The sons of men forsook the Lord all the days of Enosh and his children. Well, Enosh, guys, is before Enoch, and definitely before Jared. So, according to Enoch and Jubilees, it was in the days of Jared. The angels descended, took wives, had Nephilim, and those Nephilim became the false gods that men served. And this was the beginning of idolatry, as the book of Enoch talks about.
Totally.
So there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the timeline there by several hundred years, with Enosh being the great-grandfather of Jared, or Enoch, and the angels had not descended yet and started their mischief. So we have a lot of problems with the modern book of Jared as well.
Totally, and this is kind of bringing up. I talked about this earlier. I'm gonna share it on screen, or the other day with people, speaking about the book of Enoch. So in chapter 20, it says, and these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who's over the world and over Tartarus, and Raphael, one of the holy angels who's over the spirits of men, and Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. And 5, Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Seracuel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. And Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherub. And Ramiel, one of the holy angels who God set over those who rise. So, to 5, it says Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind. Best part of mankind. So I was racking my head about this when I first read this. This is even like before I came to enclosed cosmology. And I was like, well, what is this best part of mankind? And in Daniel 12, it says, 12:1, and it says, and at the time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. So he is set apart over the best part of mankind, which is the children of his people. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, that's why Michael's considered the Prince of Israel as far as the overseeing angel that protects them, guides them, leads them. This is why it's my theory.
Do you think
the angel?
I was going to say, do you think he's the presence of the Lord? Because it would make sense.
I think he's the one in Exodus that led them. Yeah. Yeah, if he's the one that's literally set as their guardian,
Mm-hmm.
it would make a lot of sense. And the best of mankind are those who would do the commandments of God. It means you're in covenant Israel. So that's, yeah, perfect sense to me.
John, you brought up something too that makes a lot of sense to me as well about the chapter 2. I think you read 3 through 5. That would sort of say whether or not Cain and Abel were twins or not, too, wouldn't it? Like I've always viewed, yes, we see about Cain's time, his offspring for a little while, but then it stops and then it goes into Abel's, right? Where was
Seth's.
yeah, that's right, Seth. Uh, but wouldn't that sort of squash that idea about them being twins or not?
Well, guys, you guys know me. I've found a ton of validity for the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees directly tells you that Cain and Abel, um, they were not born at the same time. Um, Eve did not conceive until 49 years after they were created, after they were out of the garden for several years, several decades. Um, and then, so yeah, that's just my idea of. To me, the Book of Jubilees has a lot of insight to all this and helps us understand like how many years they mourned until they actually had Seth later and all this stuff. And so yeah, I don't know. I don't think that they were twins. So from what I can understand, it was a twin girl was born with both Cain and Abel. So Cain born at a different time than Abel, but there was a twin girl that accompanied them, according to Jubilees.
Whose twin was she? Abel's or Cain's?
So now imagine it like this: when Cain was born, he was born with a twin girl. When Abel was born later, he was born with a twin girl also.
Oh, so they both had a set of twins. Oh, okay. So they were both a set of twins. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Where do you
Yeah,
get that from? Where do you get that from, Sean?
Jubilees.
Jubilees, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why. See what sort of as well, but not particularly in that spot. But it is something I'm gonna use to in my line of questioning, so to speak. But I don't fully 100% accept Jubilees. I'll say I'm 99.9, but I'm the same way with the Book of Joshua. So what I'm finding is those two books actually sort of contradict each other. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I throw out Jasher first, as opposed to Jubilees.
right.
We have actual archaeological findings and relics that support Jubilees and the calendar they followed, as well as lots of scribal testimony from the Dead Sea Scrolls, as well as early first through fourth century early church fathers, quote unquote. Yeah, we have a lot of testimony, archaeology, and textual manuscript that supports the validity of Jubilees. Even Judaism itself, they do not dismiss Jubilees, they just don't like talking about it. That's why they call it the Lesser Genesis and throw it to the side. But they do not dismiss its validity as a book that ancient Israel had. So I would choose Jubilees over Jasher every single time.
And I'm 50-50 with you right there. I'm not going to deny that, but I mean, I could say the same thing about the Book of Joshua too, even with the same artifacts and stuff like that. From the way I view it now, and I'm not saying my view is right or anything like that. I could see how it would match up with either or. I just don't see how both of the books are matching up with each other.
Yeah, they can't. They theologically can't match up with each other because they make some kind of truth claims in them that are contradictive. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is some meat in Jasher. Maybe it's been grabbled a lot. I don't know. The more that I do look into Jubilees, though, the more validity it seems to me because it only adds details into it. It doesn't really change the concepts.
Where do we stand on the books of Adam and Eve? Are they in or out?
Don't ask me. You won't like my answer. We did a whole show on it, honoring kings last year.
Yeah, that's with
Well,
hanging on his words. Check that out. It's a really great series.
my take on the books of Adam and Eve is I think it's a pretty elaborate tale of somebody's opinion of what might have happened. It is a good book. It's a fun book to read. When I
Yeah,
picked
it,
it up,
yeah, it,
I don't think.
sorry about that. It is a good story. It's a good read. It does let your imagination run wild. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think it's scriptural though. I don't think
It
it.
would it wouldn't surprise me though that they were, because isn't that the one where it talks about them being really big? That doesn't really surprise me that they may be bigger than like modern man.
Yeah, but it said Adam was bigger than the dimensions of the ark.
Yeah, and I know, and that's like the cubit lost in transition, or that measurement lost in transition. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. I'll just say it like this: maybe that's over exaggeration. It wouldn't be surprised if we've like got smaller and smaller throughout time. We've de-aged, right? Like for instance, like your the brow of a man, the brow of mankind always is growing, like the brow bone. So like when they show, skulls where these, the human like skulls exactly the same, but their brows are much bigger. It's like we could be looking at someone who lived way longer, and then those artifacts or those specimens are typically held up to rigidity, better than stuff, like modern days, like how quickly bodies decompose now as compared to then. I think there's a lot of stuff like that that's been on a downward trend for a long, like since sin.
Sure, we have, this is why we've tried to suggest to folks that the common denominator between the pre-flood world and the millennial reign is the fact that the water of life that flows out of the garden was here and will be back here again. That's why people live long lifespans during those two epochs of time, and that's why the current snapshot of time that we live in now, no one lives those long lifespans anymore. So that's just our opinion on what is the common denominator for that. And so yes, if you're not living longer, it's possible you don't have the same nutrients because you don't have the same pure water, which your body needs pure water to run properly. Then yes, it's possible that we've shrunk in some aspects. But to me, the absolute biggest death nail to the first book of Adam and Eve is the fact that it preaches a pre-creation, a pre-Genesis 1 existence of Satan who had a kingdom on earth. It basically makes Satan the victim, guys.
Oh
It says that
wow.
it makes the idea that Satan has his angels that followed him out of heaven and came down to the earth and they reigned on the earth. And then when man was put on the earth, it was an invasion to Satan's kingdom. And so I'm paraphrasing a little bit, obviously, but I'm just giving you the gist of this is why it's such a huge theological derail from all the rest of scriptures, and it actually creates sympathy for Satan to say that, oh, he didn't want to be in heaven, so he left and was here minding his own business, and then God put the garden here and put Adam and Eve here and got imposed on the kingdom that Satan already had here. And that's just not at all what the rest of scriptures say. It says that Satan was created on day one with all the other angels. First Enoch and Jubilees says that he was part of the crew that rebelled and caused corruption on the earth and mankind to start learning how to sin in all types of ways. And so that's just one of the many major 12 different theological problems that we found with the first book of Adam and Eve. But to me, that's the biggest one because who else teaches this Gnostic idea that Satan was existent before the world was created? It's the Catholics. This is Catholic theology, and this is why one of the earliest manuscripts, as far as chain of custody, with the first book of Adam and Eve, can only be traced back to the 6th century A.D. Catholicism was already formulated, was already cauterized, was already being thoroughly absconded by Roman influence. The original, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I won't go into a 3-hour breakdown of it, but
Well, here's my take. Here's my take on Josephus, and you probably will like this too, Sean. I feel like Josephus was the Facebook of his day. A little bit of truth based on a few facts, with a big elaborate tale and lots of opinions of his own included. I think he was like Facebook. He might have been Zuckerberg of his day.
Okay, that's something to think about. Yeah, the historians had a lot of power. They definitely, we just don't know as far as a comparison to something like social media. We just don't know exactly how much of Josephus' writings were dispersed among the average people. Because if we believe the stories that he was commissioned by the Flavius family, um, which many of the Jews and priests of Judaism back in the first and second century A.D. were in cahoots with the Romans. I mean, this is literally how Caiaphas became the high priest instead of John the Baptist family. So, like, if all that was already a part of it, like, we just don't know if that was mass produced and then disseminated to all the people, or if it was just for the records of the kings to which they could point to as an authority piece. Because remember, the mass population of manuscripts was not a thing until about the fourth century. So before that, it was great diligence and time and money in order for them to have scribes to copy things, and disseminate them. Right? It wasn't that easy because the papyrus and the different forms, they would wear out quickly, and the ink. A lot of people don't know this, but Gutenberg created a different type of ink in the 1400s that allowed it to last longer. So not just the paper didn't last as long in the days of Yeshua, but the ink itself didn't last as long. So this is why they continually had scribes remaking new scrolls to keep that information fresh and available. But that still is not the same. Like, having one library is not the same as the internet today, where all information is at the touch of everyone's fingers. Just food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we've done a little bit longer show than normal, but I don't want to
You're going to end on 9/11? Illuminati confirmed.
Illuminati confirmed. What's 9/11?
The time
Oh,
right now. Oh, well, it is where I live anyway, so it's
oh,
hilarious.
true, true.
Apparently, I'm in the Illuminati now. In case you guys didn't know, because I nervously had my fingers put together on Rob Skiva's channel 2 weeks ago. So
Oh, ooh,
it's pretty
confirmed.
hilarious.
So it's confirmed now.
I seen
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
apparently I'm an
You're getting a
absolute
lot of
government
flack
shill.
about that?
It's funny.
I was actually watching Austin Witsit Gets It the other day, and he was saying like perfectly planned, and he did that, and he's like, oh gosh, now I'm confirmed. I kind of did 9/11. We go to 9 to 11 Eastern time because we're told to never forget, right? So we got to always remember 9/11. So I figure people would remember that timing because they've been programmed to never forget. So
So here's the big question I wanted to ask you guys, which is why I was happy that Mrs. Vaderbear gave me a link to jump on tonight. If we're looking at Joshua chapter 10, the sun and moon stand still over the valley of Abijam, and I know that Anthony already proposed his theory that that's why the calendar immediately messed up at that point, and is forever messed up. But if if we have an enclosed creation model, as we all talk about, and I think everyone on this panel understands and believes, and the sun and moon are lights in the sky moving overhead, does the does is there another clock piece that the Father keeps besides the sun and moon as they dictate the day and the night? So therefore, when he stopped the sun and moon, there was some other clock the Father had still going behind the scenes.
I get what you're saying. Like those are like a worldly clock, but the time standard that he keeps is kind of above that. So even though
Well, it could. I don't know if that's true. I'm just throwing this out there because remember, Jubilee 6 is the angel. Well, not just Jubilees, but all the scriptures as the Father's will is being done in heaven. He wants us to do it on earth. That's why He asks us to keep these feasts with Him, and He keeps the feasts on a specific day on this calendar in heaven. And so, if we're to does that mean, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just throwing this up for the whole panel to consider, but does that mean if he stopped the sun and moon and that changed the calendar, does that mean that they're still in heaven keeping the correct calendar, or did they augment their calendar that day as well and wait an extra 10 hours?
Now, I'm on the opinion that basically they're keeping the correct calendar in heaven, because I believe that when the witnesses do return, or when we do see the two witnesses, they're going to get us straight on the calendar as well as a lot of other things that we have misconceptions on. But I don't think that I don't think their time stopped. I don't think actual time stopped. I think in our minds is when it messed up, because nobody could actually conceive the day and night like the night time, like it was dark out and they were still fighting, but the sun was still out, so they could still see.
I
So did
think
he
it
stop
might
the
have
stars
been.
too? You know, Enoch talks about the sun and the stars keep the same pattern in heaven above.
Yeah, it would have to stop all that. It wouldn't keep rotating. So like the whole thing, the whole system would stop. What were you gonna say, Daryl?
I think it might have been corrected when Hezekiah asked for the sun to go back 10 degrees. I could be wrong. It's just thought, though.
Well, yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
Daryl, you were breaking up a little bit, but I'm sort of in agreement with that as well. However, I had kind of presented the thing about, I think it at his time, like this happened after Joshua. I don't think it would have mattered at that point if the sun went backwards, even for a whole day. At that point, everybody had already lost what their original calendar was, or what their original day was and stuff. So he could have made it go back a whole day at that point, and it would have just messed people up even more, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. Yeah, I probably would have had to go back further 10 degrees, but yeah, that was just a thought that jumped in my head. But yeah, I never thought of that. That's a great question.
Well, another thing to that question is like, and I've looked at what you presented about the 364 day, and there's so much about it that makes sense to me, but it almost seems like too easy to be true. But then it's like, well, his yoke is light, his burden is easy. But that at the same time, like for a lot of other stuff, I had to kind of struggle to figure it out. So
You're saying that 364 calendar sounds too easy to be true?
I'm saying it makes so much sense. Like I'm saying, the only negative, quote unquote negative thing I have to say about it is it almost seems like it makes too much sense, because I have looked at lunar calendars and solar calendars, and the fact that the first few days didn't have the sun or moon, so how could they start those days and count? Like, I looked at all that evidence, and it was so confusing that when you presented that 364 with the four, let's call them cusp days,
Calvary days.
yeah, days of transition. Like, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. It makes everything counting so easy. That's where I mean it's almost too good to be true, because everything else I looked at was so confusing. And then you would come to, well, like, if I take it all the way to the end, I'm off days every time.
Right, right. So what does the devil do all the time, though? He takes something very clear and he makes it confusing. Just like when he tells, he's trying to tell men to cut their male parts off and become women. There's a huge suicide rate after that happens, because it's not natural. It's confusing. They don't even know what to call themselves. I mean, like, it's just a modern example of how the enemy works, right? So therefore, again, I did that video with breaking down Rachel Eliar and her commentary and conclusions about her immense study on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And one of the things she said was there was a battle over the calendars in the century, like first century BC, leading up to the first century AD, that 200-year time span amongst um, the Levites of the day, and certain sects that wanted to keep the solar calendar, and the other ones wanted to keep the lunar calendar. And the reason that the Levites and the priests that want to keep the solar calendar said that the lunar calendar came from Greece, from Babylon. You remember Greece ruled Babylon in the days of Alexander the Great. So they were saying like, no, the lunar calendar is Babylonian, the solar calendar is the ones the scriptures. So this debate's been going on for 2,000 years, guys. But all I'm saying is she presented forth some interesting findings and commentary and evidence about something that surprised her, which was, wow, I didn't realize this calendar debate went back so far, even 2,000 years ago, and that the supposed Levites back then were saying, hey, the solar calendar is the covenant days of the calendar, and it was considered a holy war that they were in with the other sects of, I think it was the Sadducees or the parts of the Pharisees that were pushing for this lunar calendar. So, lots to consider, lots to consider, and this is why, to me, the lunar calendar and anything other than 364, it just literally doesn't make any sense, because you do have to add days here and there, and you have to, it just gets really, really wonky really fast. And this is exactly what Jubilee 6 tells us. Same thing with Enoch 84. It tells us that if you follow the moon, you will be off. But if you follow the sun, it's in perfect harmony, 364. Same with the stars. Just my thoughts.
Sweet.
I do agree. Shout out to my dear brother and good friend Chris. He's got a really good interpretation of how the solar lunar calendar works and stuff. And I tell you, I've looked into it, and of course I can't refute very many of them at all, but his makes a lot of sense to me. And I think maybe he should kind of present his findings every once in one day too. Maybe everybody will sort of come together there or something, because I see a lot of fussing when it comes to the calendar.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I kind of shied away from it, because it's like, and one of the reasons why I've made the thought of like, maybe that is one of the things that the two witnesses would reveal. So if the calendar the calendar that you showed, I don't know the correct name for it, but the calendar that you showed, if that's correct, then that's not even needed, or maybe it is in part, because I don't know, does it change, like, for instance, if you continue that calendar, will the summer always be during that chunk? I guess it's kind of the same, right? It just changes it a little bit, just makes 30-day segments instead of 31 and 30 and 28.
And we could talk for 2 weeks about it.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, let's we're actually almost 30 minutes past our typical time, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. I got a little housekeeping to do real quick before we say our goodbyes. So first is shout out to Chris and Liz Bailey over at Take on the World. If y'all are not subscribed to them, definitely go check them out. They give us this opportunity to come on their platform and share our puzzle pieces with their community and their family. So we really do appreciate that. So obviously go show them some love and get some subscribed. And then awesome, we're at 508, so that means we're definitely going to be a drawing. So just to reiterate, and we'll make another post about this as well, but you need to be subscribed. You need to at least leave one comment on one video. And then next week will be the announcement of the winner, and that will be, we'll put all those names into a randomizer. We'll draw a name, and that's going to be the winner.
And it'll be announced on in the Facebook group as well.
Correct.
It'll be pinned in the Facebook group, the winner of it.
Sweet. And then And as always, we read the comments. So this was from last week's video, which was shot, talking about whether, some of these events that we see are staged or actually real operations. We got some comments. This is on Take on the World. Joseph Steffen said, it's hilarious how conspiracy guys magically agree with the mainstream consistence on Hitlerio. Actually, I don't, and my comment is I don't believe in the mainstream view of the guy, but sometimes we have to use examples in which people are familiar with. We know his story is full of garbled information and not limited to the roller skate king, i.e. Hilario. So what my point on using those examples is, again, most people know them. Of course, we should look into matters deeply. And then Moonglow said, "Thank you. Nice to hear Marsha again. Yeah, we love Marsha. She's definitely a dear sister to us. So she's actually has some medical stuff. She's having some issues with her kidneys. So those that would like, say a prayer for her kidneys." That infection would clear up and she'd feel much better. So just want to throw that out there. And then, of course, go check out our other stuff. We got 23 other episodes, but a whole bunch of other special guest content as well as special episodes. There's a lot there, so go check it out. And then, again, from our video streamed over here, we had a few more. As always, I enjoyed the show. We enjoy you, Marsha. And my lovely wife said, I love the switch to Friday nights, everyone. Thank you. And we do too. It's working a lot better for us. So we appreciate that's my wife's idea. So, and then Anthony said, I've been finding so much more that we covered here. Definitely deserves a part 2. Yeah, literally so much information, so little time. We could literally do, I feel like we really need to get into more conspiracies and stuff like that, but maybe do it another day. But anyways, and then I left a comment, thanks for leaving a comment. It helps it grow. It really does. So we appreciate when you do. So anyways, that's the rest of the housekeeping. Shout out to you, Sean, for rating us, and shout out to all the new people that joined us and subscribed. Those that are in the chat, we really love the conversations that you're having. Other than that, we'll go ahead and start saying our goodbyes and then play our outro. So I'll throw it off, as always, to Anthony, if you'd like to say your piece.
Yeah, I'd just like to say again, Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and thank you all for coming out and everything. Thank you, Sean, for being basically a special guest tonight. Always
thanks for having me, guys.
But we I know there's a lot of talk and disagreement on certain aspects throughout Scripture, but brothers and sisters, we're all in this together. We're all on a search for truth. What is the real truth? We shouldn't stop we shouldn't stop looking for the truth just because someone says so. Let Yah's word be true and every man a liar. And thank you all for showing up. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Much love, many blessings.
Thank you, bro. Much love and many blessings to you as well. And Daryl joined us a little late, but I'm glad you're able to join. Sorry you're having tech issues, but if you'd like to say hi's and goodbyes, now's your chance.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it, and glad to see y'all, and especially Sean. Thank you for showing up, and yeah, Shabbat Shalom, and I agree with Anthony. Yeah, it's great that we all come together because we all have a piece, and to hear somebody else's piece and helps us fit, so we fit together good. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Sweet, thank you for that, brother. And absolutely, iron sharpen irons, as one man sharpens another. We got to be willing to do that. So, and Frankie B, if you'd like to say your goodbyes.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thanks for coming on, Sean, and rating us. And you're the man that got us over to 500. Thank you so much. Somebody's going to win a beautiful shofar. And I just want to leave us with, let's just be thankful for all the blessings that we have, even though we're in trying times and seems like all these elites are against us. We're still more blessed than our forefathers. We all have running water, most of us, modern toilets. So we're coffee whenever we want it. So we're living in a great and wonderful time. And just remember to dig deep, because it's all revealed in the scriptures and in his love. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to give a shout out also to Jeremiah Skiba and Jake Grant there on Skiba News Nation. They did their second episode today, and it was pretty good. There was some pretty cool stuff they came up with there. So, yeah, if anybody'd like to check that out.
Oh, and Vader, one more thing. When you play the outro, make sure you turn the volume up.
Oh, for sure, I will.
Thank you.
Vader, I'm
Gotta
gonna
hear
take
that
out
one loud.
You guys have me on.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I said I'm gonna jump out, but I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh yeah, sweet. Thanks for being here, bro. Have a good night.
For everyone celebrating Shabbat Shalom, I want to encourage you guys. And Frankie B, I love what you said, because when we really look at Scripture, almost every significant story in Scripture is when the powers that be were oppressing the righteous, and God came through. So we're still living in those days, and we can take a wealth of example from the faithful in the Scriptures and how we do not have to walk in fear in these days. So, all right, guys, y'all are good. I'll see you later.
Later.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Sweet. All right. Well, again, thank you all for being out here. Again, shout out to Sean for joining us, a little surprise guest there, and for the raid and bringing his pieces of the puzzle, to the table. We definitely appreciate that. Again, shout out to all the new people, all the subscribers, all those that comment. It really helps us grow. Of course, the link to the Discord is in the description. So if you want to maybe join the panel and come on live, or if you just want to, meet a community of people that are seeking the truth, then Discord is a great place to do it. So. Other than that, I hope y'all have a restful rest of y'all Shabbat for those that, again, practice it, and a great week coming up. And until next time, remember that it was ABBA that loved you first. Good night, everyone.
It's your glory, conceal the mystery. You give us the honor to search a matter. You raise up a standard to beat back our enemy. You establish this realm, and like a scroll you spread it out. Dig deep, searching